Billionaire gives for black credit cards to test for woman what his maid brought left him speechless. Hi, my beautiful family. I speak to you today with a heart full of love, but also with truth. Our channel is built on your strength, your love, and your support. Every story I write is written with tears, with passion, and with prayer for each one of you. But my family, I see the channel going down, because many forget to like, many forget to comment. It hurts me, because it feels like my hard work is left unseen. I ask you today, not just as a creator, but as your brother who truly loves you, please whenever you watch, give your love back. A simple like, a simple comment keeps this family alive, keeps our light shining, and gives me the power to bring you more and more beautiful stories. May God bless every woman in this family with honor, with dignity, and with unshakable strength. May every man be blessed with wisdom and respect. May our children rise higher than mountains, and may every home be filled with endless love and peace. Amen. If your heart is true, write, present. If your love is real, write in the comment where you're watching from. You know those stories where money doesn't just buy luxury, it reveals who people really are. This one is about a billionaire named Adrian, for women who swore they loved him, and a test that should have been simple until his maid, of all people, walked in and left him absolutely speechless. Picture the scene: a sleek penthouse suite, glass walls opening to a city skyline glowing at dusk. Adrian sits at the head of a marble table, full glossy black credit cards laid out in front of him, with diamonds in a quiet war. Each card has no limit, no restrictions, just one rule: bring me something, he told them, his voice calm but firm. That proves what I mean to you. The women exchanged quick glances, their painted smiles flickering with the thrill of unlimited spending. You could almost hear the wheels turning in their heads. Jewelry, designer bags, maybe even a car. For them, love had a price tag, and they were ready to swipe. Adrian leaned back, watching their excitement with a faint smirk. On the surface, it looked like a game, but deep down, this was his gamble, the only way he could separate affection from greed. Now, here's the twist. Adrian thought he knew how it would end. He expected shallow gestures, lavish, predictable tokens. What he didn't expect was Marisol the maid, who wasn't even part of the game, stepping quietly into the picture. She had no designer dress, no glossy smile, just something small, something that seemed almost insignificant compared to the diamonds and champagne that would soon pour in. But when she placed her gift in front of Adrian, the room fell silent. It wasn't expensive, it wasn't flashy, and yet it carried more weight than anything money could buy. Because sometimes the most powerful statement isn't bought, it's earned. And what happened next? Well, it shattered illusions, unmasked greed, and proved once and for all that loyalty doesn't come with a receipt. Before we dive into this story, hey, if you love tales where justice isn't just served, but chilled and plated with silver, make sure to hit that subscribe button. These videos take hours of research, writing, and editing, plus, let's be honest, a lot of emotional recovery from second-hand rage. So your support, it really does mean the world. Now, let's go back to the beginning. Adrian Calloway wasn't born into money. He earned it brick by brick, deal by deal, while most people his age were still fumbling their way through unpaid internships. By 40, he'd built an empire that touched everything from tech startups to luxury real estate. On paper, he was untouchable, but in private, he carried a quiet burden that no net worth could solve. Trust, or rather the lack of it. See, Adrian remembered the years when no one returned his calls, back when he wore the same suit 3 days in a row and slept in the back of his office. And he remembered the exact moment that changed. The money came, and suddenly, people cared. Friends resurfaced, relatives appeared out of thin air, and women who never gave him a second glance now acted like they'd known all along he was special. It left him with a question that gnawed at him daily: who actually cared for him the man, not the fortune? Now, don't get me wrong, Adrian wasn't some hermit locked away in a tower of cash. He dated a lot, in fact, for women, to be exact, each with their own brand of allure. First, there was Bianca the model, gorgeous, confident, the kind of woman who could turn every head in a crowded room. But she treated luxury like oxygen. If it wasn't designer, it wasn't worth touching. Then came Serena the socialite. She had family money, but adored Adrian's more. She spoke in headlines and Instagram captions, curating every moment of their relationship for the perfect post. Her love language wasn't words or touchy. It was HASHTAGS. Third, you had Leela the art dealer. Sharp, ambitious, charming in a way that made you want to believe her. But Adrian noticed how often her gifts to him came from galleries she conveniently profited from. Love, yes, but with a commission attached. And finally, Camille the actress, warm, bubbly, with a laugh that could light up a room. But beneath the sparkle, there was something performative, like every moment was an audition. And Adrian wasn't sure if she wanted him or just the leading role that came with his last name. Individually, they were dazzling. Collectively, they shared one thing. Every gesture, every compliment, every kiss carried a faint echo of calculation. Adrian wasn't blind to it. He played along, smiled at the right times, bought the gifts, attended the parties. But late at night, in that penthouse suite where silence pressed harder than any spotlight, he'd stare out at the city and wonder, if I lost it all tomorrow, who would still be here? And the truth was, he didn't have an answer. That's where the doubt settled in, heavy and unrelenting, because wealth gave him everything except certainty. Now, this wasn't just paranoia. Adrian saw the cracks. Bianca once snapped when a Cartier bracelet didn't come in the color she wanted. Serena posted a candid photo of him asleep without his permission because it got likes. Leela pitched him an investment during what was supposed to be a romantic weekend. And Camille, well, let's just say he caught her practicing crying on cue in the mirror before an argument. Funny, isn't it? The richer he became, the poorer his faith in people grew. And here's where you come in. Do you think money makes it harder or easier to find real love? I mean, on one hand, you have endless options. On the other, how do you know they're there for you and not the black card burning a hole in your wallet? Drop your thoughts below. I'm genuinely curious. For Adrian, the doubt didn't just linger, it consumed. And one night, staring at those glittering city lights, he decided enough was enough. He needed proof, a way to see past the smiles and staged affection. What he came up with wasn't cruel, it wasn't manipulative, but it was bold, a test. One that would either expose the truth or, just maybe, restore his faith. And that test? Well, it started with 4 black credit cards. The night of the test was quiet, almost unnervingly so. Adrian had chosen the setting carefully, his dining room. Not a restaurant, not some grand gala. Just him, 4 women, and a long glass table that reflected every flicker of the chandelier above. On that table sat 4 black credit cards. They gleamed like tiny secrets, lined in a neat row. Each one could unlock anything: diamonds, cars, even islands if you knew the right broker. But for Adrian, they weren't symbols of wealth. They were mirrors. And tonight, he intended to see what they revealed. He leaned forward, steepling his fingers. I want you each, he said slowly, his voice even, to take one of these cards and bring back something that proves what I mean to you. No limits. No instructions, just, show me. For a moment, silence. Then Bianca laughed lightly, brushing her hair back with manicured fingers. That's easy, she purred. Piece of cake. She snatched a card before anyone else could move, as though speed meant victory. Serena raised a brow, smirking. Oh, come on, Adrian. You know I'm going to crush this. Her tone dripped with competitiveness. She slid a card toward her with a perfectly polished nail, eyes flashing like she was already envisioning the Instagram caption. Leela, the art dealer, stayed quiet, but her gaze lingered on the cards with calculation. Finally, she lifted one with a small, knowing smile, like a gambler pulling a chip from the table. Camille waited until last, performing her hesitation like it was theatre. She gave Adrian a soft, almost tearful look. You'll see what you mean to me, she whispered, clutching the card to her chest as if it was holy scripture. 4 women, 4 cards, 4 promises. On the surface, they looked thrilled, but underneath, something else was simmering: greed, competition, the thrill of unlimited power. Their eyes glittered with the kind of hunger Adrian knew too well. He sat back, forcing a smile, though his gut twisted. Was he testing them, or himself? What none of them noticed was Marisol, the maid, quietly clearing glasses at the far end of the room. She kept her head down, but her ears worked just fine. When Adrian gave his instructions, she froze for just a second. Her gaze flicked toward the cards, then back to her tray. Not for herself, never for herself, but because she understood more about Adrian's loneliness than anyone in that room. She had seen him on the quiet mornings before the world noticed him, coffee half drunk, papers scattered, eyes heavy with something money couldn't buy, fatigue. She'd seen him at his worst, when his migraines drove him into silence, and at his most human, when he lingered by the photo of his late mother. Because here's the thing about money, it reveals, but it also blinds. You can't always tell if someone's smiling because they care, or because they see dollar signs. Now, pause for a second. Imagine you were handed a no-limit card. No rules, no restrictions. If someone you love said, "Show me what I mean to you," what would you bring back? Would it be expensive? Or would it be something different, something priceless? Be honest. Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear. Back in Adrian's penthouse, Marisol lingered a little longer that night. She wiped the table, collected the half-empty glasses, and noticed the way Adrian sat there, lost in thought. "Long day, sir?" she asked softly. Adrian blinked, pulling himself back. "Something like that." She didn't push. She never did. But when she glanced at that empty card slot again, she felt a tug in her chest. She didn't know why. Maybe because she'd seen too many women come and go, their smiles fading once the money stopped flowing. Or maybe because, deep down, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't really about cards at all. It was about whether Adrian would finally find someone who saw him. And though she didn't know it yet, soon, that someone would be her. But that's getting ahead of the story. For now, 4 women had their golden tickets, and Adrian, he had nothing but doubt, the ticking clock, and the sinking suspicion that what they brought back might cost him more than money. The first to return was Bianca. She strutted into the penthouse like she owned it, designer heels clicking against marble. On her wrist, a diamond-studded watch so bright it could blind you if the light hit just right. She held it up as though she'd just discovered the cure for loneliness. "Cartier limited edition," she announced proudly. "Only 5 in the world. I had to pull some strings, but you're worth it." Her smile lingered on the diamonds, not on Adrian. That told him everything. He nodded politely, thanked her, even tried to mirror her enthusiasm. But inside, disappointment started its slow crawl. Was this what she thought he wanted? A reflection of his own wealth staring back at him from her wrist. Next came Serena, and oh, she didn't just walk in, she made an entrance. Behind her, 2 assistants dragged shopping bags stacked like skyscrapers, glossy logos plastered across them. "Surprise," she sang, twirling in a couture gown that probably cost more than most people's rent for a year. "I thought about what you mean to me, and, well, you're my world, so I bought you the world." She tossed a bag onto the table. Inside was a platinum globe sculpture, covered in tiny gems. Expensive, absolutely, personal, not even close. Adrian forced another smile, though this one faltered. He wondered if Serena had even paused long enough to think about him, the man. If she just saw an opportunity to turn love into a photo op. Leela arrived third, calm and collected. She didn't bother with assistants or theatrics. Instead, she presented a framed piece of art, abstract, bold, striking. "It's a statement piece," she explained smoothly. "Represents strength, vision, you." Adrian studied the brush strokes, the clashing colors. Beautiful, yes, but as his eyes drifted to the tiny gallery stamp in the corner, He realized it was from her own collection. Convenient, almost too convenient. He couldn't help the flicker of cynicism. Was this a gift for him or just another sale for her? Finally, Camille. Sweet, bubbly Camille, who practically floated in on a cloud of perfume and enthusiasm. She clasped Adrian's hands dramatically, eyes wide as if she'd just stepped out of a rom-com. I didn't just buy something, she declared breathlessly. I bought *** something. She pointed outside, where a gleaming sports car sat parked in the driveway, ribbon and all, so we can escape together whenever we want, just you and me. Adrian glanced at the car's sleek, red, absurdly impractical. His chest tightened, not from all but from something far heavier. Did she really believe a sports car equaled devotion? By the time Camille finished her speech, the table was buried under glittering tokens of love, watches, jewelry, artwork, designer clothes, a sports car idling outside. It looked less like romance and more like an auction house gone mad. And Adrian, he sat there, hands folded, a faint ache behind his eyes. They had all played their parts perfectly. They smiled, they praised, they draped themselves in luxury, but none of it carried weight. None of it touched the hollow space in his chest that longed for something real. The irony was almost cruel. He had given them unlimited power to show him the truth, and all they revealed was how shallow their affection truly was. He leaned back, exhaling slowly, watching them chatter and bicker about whose gift was better. Serena bragged about her globe. Bianca scoffed that her watch was more timeless. Camille insisted nothing beat adventure, while Leela smirked quietly, confident her art carried sophistication the others lacked. Adrian didn't interrupt. He just listened. Their voices overlapped, competitive and sharp, each one clawing for dominance in a contest they didn't even realize they had already lost. Inside, Adrian felt the disappointment calcify into something else. Clarity. He saw them for what they were, and he wondered, not for the first time, if anyone in his orbit cared about him. Stripped of the fortune, stripped of the power, and just when he was about to give up on everyone, the last person he expected walked into the room. The room was still buzzing from the women's bickering when the air shifted. Quiet footsteps, a presence that didn't demand attention, but carried it anyway. Marisol. She wasn't dressed for competition, no designer gown, no dramatic entrance, just her usual uniform, neat, simple, humble. Her hands, however, weren't empty. She held something small, wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. The contrast was almost laughable. For women flaunting treasures worth millions. And then Marisol, clutching a package that looked like it belonged on a kitchen shelf. Adrian frowned, curiosity flickering. She hadn't been part of the test. He hadn't given her a card, a rule, or even a chance. So why was she here? She cleared her throat softly. Forgive me, sir. I know I wasn't asked to bring anything. The others rolled their eyes, thin smirks tugging at painted lips. Bianca even whispered, how cute. But Marisol didn't flinch. She stepped forward, steady and unhurried, until she was close enough to place the package on the table. Adrian studied her, then the bundle. His voice was low. And what is this? Her fingers lingered on the twine as she answered. Something that reminded me of you. Not the man on magazine covers. The man I've watched from the corners of this house. The one who forgets to eat when he's working too hard. The one who looks out the window like he's searching for someone. The room went still. Carefully, she unwrapped the paper. Inside lay a faded leather-bound notebook, its edges worn, pages frayed. Adrian's breath caught before he could stop it. He knew that notebook. It was his mother's. She used to jot down recipes, notes, scraps of wisdom. That very book. He'd lost track of it years ago, buried somewhere in storage, he assumed. Yet here it was, restored, cleaned, wrapped with care. Marisol's voice softened. I found it in one of the old boxes in the library. I thought maybe you'd want it back. Adrian reached out, hands almost trembling. His thumb brushed the cover. And just like that, memories flooded in. The smell of his mother's cooking, the warmth of her laughter, the way she used to encourage him when he was just a boy with impossible dreams. The women shifted uncomfortably, their jeweled gifts suddenly dull in the shadow of a weathered notebook. Bianca scoffed. "It's just an old diary." But Adrian wasn't listening. Marisol wasn't finished either. "I bookmarked a page," she said quietly, pointing to a ribbon tucked between the sheets. "Your mother wrote about you there. I thought you'd want to see it." He opened to the marked page. His eyes scanned the familiar handwriting. "Adrian will build something great one day. Not because of money, because of heart." His throat tightened. He hadn't read those words since he was a teenager. Back then, they'd been a lifeline fuel for nights when he doubted himself. And now, in this moment, they cut through the noise like sunlight through storm clouds. For a long time, he couldn't speak. He just stared at the page, jaw tight, fighting the wave of emotion that threatened to undo him. Finally, he looked up at Marisol, and for the first time in years, his smile wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't the polite, polished grin he wore at galas and boardrooms. It was real. Small, yes, but real. You kept this safe?" he asked. Her gaze dropped, humble. "I just thought it belonged with you. It cost nothing. It glittered not at all. Yet it weighed more than every watch, car, and gown piled on that table." The other women squirmed. Their painted confidence cracked, replaced by irritation, envy, even fear. Serena crossed her arms tightly. Camille bit her lip. Leila raised a brow but said nothing. They all felt it, the shift in Adrian's eyes. The way he looked at Marisol, not as a servant, but as someone who understood him in a way they never could. He closed the notebook carefully, almost reverently, as though it might shatter if he held it too tightly. Then he set it against his chest, drawing in a slow, steady breath. And in that breath, he realized something. Every grand gesture, every glittering display tonight had been a performance. But this was truth. Marisol had given him not a symbol of wealth, but a reminder of where he came from, who he had been, who he still was beneath the empire, beneath the headlines. It wasn't about cost. It was about meaning. The irony didn't escape him. He had staged a test to expose shallow hearts, and yet the one person who passed had never been playing. He let the silence stretch, watching Marisol retreat a single step, as if unsure whether she had overstepped. But he wasn't about to let her fade back into the background. "Not now, Marisol," he said, his tone firmer, carrying weight. She paused, glancing back. "Thank you," to simple words. Yet they carried more sincerity than anything he'd spoken all evening. The others bristled, their jewels suddenly feeling like chains around their necks. They had lost, not just the test, but something deeper. Because for the first time, Adrian wasn't looking at them. He was looking at her. And though no one in that glittering room would admit it out loud, they all knew. The maid had just changed everything. What's the most meaningful gift you've ever received? Not the most expensive, the most meaningful. Drop your story in the comments. At first, no one said anything. The silence around that table was sharper than glass, each woman fidgeting as Adrian lingered on Marisol's gift. His hands still rested on the notebook like it was sacred, while the glittering treasures piled around him suddenly looked like cheap stage props. And then Bianca cracked. "You can't be serious," she snapped, her tone brittle. "That old book, that's what's impressing you, Adrian. It's sentimental junk." Camille chimed in, laughing too loudly. "She didn't even follow the rules. You told us to bring something. She wasn't part of this." Her voice sharpened as she gestured toward Marisol. "She's the maid. She doesn't belong in this conversation." The word *maid* landed like a slap. Marisol's eyes dropped, but Adrian didn't flinch. He was watching them, really watching them now, every twitch of their painted smiles, every flash of irritation beneath the surface. Leila leaned forward, her bracelet clinking against the table. "Adrian, darling," she purred, forcing sweetness into her voice, "don't let this cloud your judgment. We brought you things that actually represent value. Real love isn't a notebook." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "Real love is a watch, a car, a gown you'll never wear again." For once, they had no slick reply. Serena broke the pause with a sharp scarf. Oh, come on. We're trying to show you how much we care. Do you think she, her eyes cut toward Marisol, dripping venom, cares more than we do? She doesn't even have money to buy you a meal, let alone stand beside you in the life you live. The mask had slipped, the honeyed tones, the soft affection, all of it peeled away, replaced by naked greed and entitlement. Adrian leaned back, the faintest trace of a smile tugging his lips. Not amusement, recognition. He had suspected, of course, that nagging doubt had been why he staged the test at all. But to hear them bare their motives so openly, it was confirmation. Marisol shifted slightly, as though to step back and disappear. But Adrian's gaze anchored her there. Funny, he said softly. She didn't need money to bring me something priceless. You had unlimited credit and still couldn't think past a store window. The air grew tense. Bianca slammed her hand on the table. We don't have to sit here and be humiliated by some housemaid. If you can't see what we've done for you, what have you done for me? Adrian cut in, voice firm now. His eyes swept over them. Tell me, what sacrifice have you made? What gesture, beyond spending my money, shows you value me at all? Their silence was deafening. Camille opened her mouth, but nothing came. Leela twirled her hair, searching for charm where there was none. Serena crossed her arms, seething. It was as if every carefully constructed mask had crumbled at once, leaving only desperation beneath. Marisol, meanwhile, stood quietly, the weight of her presence felt without her saying a word. She didn't need to argue. She didn't need to compete. Her gift had already spoken for her, and Adrian saw it clearer than ever. The women's affection had always been a transaction, their smiles bought with vacations, their loyalty leased with diamonds. But Marisol's gesture, that came from somewhere deeper, untouched by greed. He drew in a long breath, then placed the notebook gently back on the table. You've all shown me exactly what I needed to see. 4 pairs of eyes snapped to him, wide with alarm. What's that supposed to mean? Bianca hissed. It means, Adrian said, his voice steady, that I finally understand the difference between people who want me and people who want what I can provide. The women erupted. Overlapping voices filled the room. Accusations, pleas, even insults hurled at each other as much as at him. Their composure dissolved into chaos, each one scrambling to outdo the other in justification. I've always been there for you. You'd be nothing without someone like me on your arm. She's manipulating you. Can't you see that? It was almost pathetic, like watching masks slip from actors mid-performance, revealing not stars, but desperate amateurs. And through it all, Marisol remained still, quiet, dignified. Adrian didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than their tantrum. Finally, he stood. The movement alone cut through the noise. Enough. They froze. His eyes swept over them one last time. You've shown me who you are tonight, and it's exactly who I feared you were. He glanced toward Marisol, his expression softening just slightly. And who I never realized she was. That single glance was more devastating to the others than any insult. They saw it, the recognition, the shift, the undeniable contrast. Bianca's face flushed scarlet. Camille's lips trembled. Serena muttered under her breath. Leela simply stared, calculating her next move even in defeat. But the truth was out. Their masks had fallen, and there was no picking them back up. And Adrian, for the first time in years, he felt clarity. Do you think Adrian should cut all of them off or give someone a second chance? Vote now. Adrian could have ended it right there. He could have dismissed them, let their greed speak for itself, and walked away with quiet dignity. But that wasn't enough. Not this time. He wanted them to feel the weight of their choices. So, while they still sat fuming, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, calm, collected, almost a casual. You know, he said, voice steady, those cards I gave you, they're not just limitless, they're traceable. 4 sets of eyes blinked in confusion. I watched every purchase you made, Adrian continued, tapping his screen. And the results? Well, they were telling. Bianca shifted uneasily. What do you mean by that? Adrian's gaze locked on her first. You said you were bringing me a watch to honor our time together. Sweet, except you also used the card to book a week-long trip to Santorini. 2 tickets. One in your name, one in your ex's. The color drained from Bianca's face. That's not. But Adrian cut her off with a single look. I don't need excuses. Just honesty. Something you apparently couldn't buy. He turned to Camille next. She straightened in her seat, as if posture could save her. Camille, you brought me a designer suit. Nice touch. But you also spent $15,000 on handbags. For yourself. And unless I miss something, love isn't measured in leather and logos. Her lips parted, ready to argue, but nothing came out. She sank back, eyes burning holes into the floor. Adrian's attention slid to Serena. You were the most interesting, he said. You gifted me a sports car. Flashy, sure. But you also made a down payment on a penthouse under your own name, using my card, planning for a future I wouldn't even be in. Serena's jaw tightened, but her eyes gave her away. Caught, finally. He faced Leela. She smirked, as if she could charm her way through. And you, Leela. The gown was stunning, I'll admit that. But behind it, charges for a private consultation with a matchmaker, an agency that guarantees introductions to men your level. Her smirk faltered. Adrian let the silence stretch, each revelation echoing in the room. 4 women. 4 betrayals. Do you see the pattern? He asked quietly. Not one of you thought beyond yourselves. Not one gesture came without strings, without some angle. And yet Chiti's eyes flicked toward Marisol, spent nothing, and gave me everything. The women bristled, defensive, humiliated. Bianca's voice rose first. You set us up. That's what this was. A trap. No. Adrian replied, his tone razor sharp. It was a mirror. You just didn't like what you saw. The words cut deeper than any shouting match could. One by one, they stood. No more protests. No more excuses. Just a quiet shuffle of heels on marble. As they stormed out, faces flushed, reputations cracked, masks left in pieces behind them. When the door closed, the silence that followed was almost peaceful. Adrian exhaled, as though shedding the weight of years, in one breath. Turns out, loyalty can't be swiped at a checkout counter. When the last echo of stiletto heels faded down the hall, something in the room shifted. It wasn't loud or dramatic. It was subtle, almost fragile. But Adrian felt it as sudden clarity, like the moment a storm clears and the air feels new again. And there, standing quietly near the doorway, was Marisol, still in her plain uniform, still holding herself with that quiet grace she always carried. Except now, Adrian wasn't looking asterisk through asterisk her. He was looking asterisk at asterisk her. He gestured toward a chair. Sit with me, Marisol. She hesitated. Sir, I shoulda know. He interrupted gently. Please, just sit. It was a simple request, but for her, it felt strange. She wasn't used to being invited to the table. She had always been the one clearing it. Adrian studied her for a moment, then asked the question that had been pressing at him ever since she placed that notebook in front of him. Why that? Why not something else? Marisol folded her hands. Because it wasn't about what I could buy. It was about reminding you who you are. Before the money, before the noise. You've built so much, sir, but sometimes it looks like you forget the man who started it all. Her words hit harder than any accusation the women had thrown at him. Honest, steady, without agenda. For once, Adrian didn't have a clever reply. He just nodded slowly, as if letting the truth settle where it belonged. Over the days that followed, something remarkable happened. Adrian found himself asking Marisol's opinion about things he would never have asked before. A new charity initiative, a piece of art for his office, even something as trivial as which tie to wear for a meeting. It wasn't about the tie, of course. It was about trust. She'd give her thoughts honestly, sometimes with a quiet laugh, sometimes with a pause long enough to show she actually cared about her answer. And Adrian realized he valued it more than the rehearsed compliments of anyone else in his life. He began noticing things, too. The way she remembered names, security guards, assistants, drivers. The way she treated everyone with respect, no matter their rank. Integrity wasn't something she preached. It was something she lived. And slowly, the power dynamic shifted, not in the way tabloids would describe it, with flashy headlines and scandal. No, this was quieter, deeper. Adrian stopped seeing her as the maid. He saw her as the only person in his orbit who hadn't been blinded by his wealth. One night, over dinner, not the kind with 10 courses and imported wines, just a simple meal he'd asked her to share. He admitted it. "You know, Marisol," he said softly, "I've spent years chasing the wrong kind of wealth. Jets, yachts, women who looked perfect on paper, but none of it meant anything when I was sitting alone in those empty houses." She looked at him, eyes calm but kind. "Maybe now you know what really matters." Adrian gave a faint smile. "I think I do." And in that moment, the empire builder, the billionaire, the man who had everything, felt humbled by someone who technically had nothing. Except she did have something. Something priceless. Loyalty. The kind you couldn't swipe at a counter or flaunt on a red carpet. The kind that held steady when everything else cracked. Sometimes, the person you overlook as the one holding the most valuable treasure. Loyalty. Time has a way of sanding down the sharp edges of a storm. Months passed, and Adrian's life looked different. Not louder, not grander, just quieter. And for the first time, he welcomed it. The parties stopped. The invitations, at least the ones dripping with ulterior motives, went unanswered. Adrian no longer had the appetite for shallow smiles and empty laughter. He had seen behind the curtain, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Marisol remained at his side, though not in the way some might expect. There wasn't some sweeping love story, no sudden candlelit confessions. What grew between them was something far more rare: trust, steady, uncomplicated, real. He found himself leaning on her not because he had to, but because he wanted to. When he debated whether to take on a new venture, she'd tilt her head, think for a moment, then tell him honestly if it smelled like ego more than vision. And he listened. That part surprised him the most. One evening, as they walked through the garden that used to host champagne-fueled galas, Adrian admitted, "You know, I used to measure people by how much they impress me. Now I measure them by how much peace they bring me." Marisol smiled. Peace lasts longer than applause. And with that, she kept walking, leaving him to consider how simple truths can feel heavier than diamonds. Adrian began reconnecting with old friends, the ones who knew him before the billions, before the empire. He started showing up at family dinners he used to skip. He even carved time to mentor a few young entrepreneurs, not with flashy advice, but with lessons scarred into his own mistakes. For once, his world wasn't built on spectacle. It was built on sincerity. And tucked away, in the back of a safe, lay those 4 black credit cards, untouched, unused. He didn't cancel them, no. That would have been too easy. Instead, he locked them in silence. A reminder of the test that revealed more than he bargained for. Some nights, when the house was still, he'd glance at that safe and almost laugh. All that power, all that temptation, gathering dust. Proof that money could open doors, but it could never keep them from slamming shut. What kept them open was something simpler: truth, loyalty, a steady voice reminding him who he was when everything else tried to make him forget. And so, Adrian's empire didn't just survive, it shifted. Not louder, not brighter, just stronger. Because this time, it was grounded. Sometimes, the greatest new beginning isn't about adding more, it's about needing less. In the end, Adrian didn't just regain control of his fortune, he regained clarity. For years, he thought wealth was about appearances, about surrounding himself with people who sparkled under the right light. But appearances fade. Honesty, once found, doesn't. Marisol's gift, small, thoughtful, almost ordinary at first glance, reshaped everything he thought he knew about loyalty. It wasn't the price tag that struck him. It was the weight of sincerity, a reminder that the rarest treasures aren't bought, they're given freely. And that's what stayed with him. Not the cars, not the designer labels, not the shallow promises, Just a simple gesture from someone he once overlooked. Funny, isn't it? How one quiet moment can undo years of illusion. So Adrian made his choice to build a life rooted in truth, not vanity, to stop chasing applause and start valuing peace. And if you ask me, that's the kind of revenge no amount of money can buy. Now, before we close, let me ask you, what about you? What's the most meaningful gift you've ever received? Not the most expensive, the most meaningful. And if you found this story as satisfying as I did, please hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe. It takes hours to write, sift through details, and bring these stories to life, and your support helps us keep doing what we love. Because in the end, stories like loyalty are best when they're shared.